So tell me about this Harry Gant story with you, because I have not heard that one yet.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
man. Dude, this was 90. Gosh, it's my first year of school, which would have been 91. Bob Johnson was my crew chief. We were running the car. We actually had a good car that day. And we got mixed up. I think it was a race when Kyle Petty broke his leg, I believe, on the backstretch. I got mixed up in that wreck. And it screwed up the front of the nose of my car. So we'd come down pit road, and my crew was trying to fix the nose, right? And get it patched back together. Well, we're on pit road, and they we didn't get back out in time to catch a pack. So when I go back out, I'm all by myself, and we run all day. Kind of, it seems like that. But anyhow, I come up. Harry's leading the race. He's leading the race towards the end of the race. They're running me down and Harry comes up to me to lap me. Okay, and we're running together, and they come on the radio and tell me, Rick, Harry is leading and he hadn't pitted and it's going to be close on gas. Would you get behind him just in case? Right. So I get behind him. The race ends. Harry wins the race. We pull into the garage area, and I'm down here talking to all the reporters. I got as many reporters in my garage as Harry's got in Victor Lane. Right. And I'm sitting here telling them that I did not help Harry. I may have bumped him a couple times, but I didn't, I didn't actually help him and all that. Basically lying my ass off. And then there's Harry up on Victor Lane on CBS TV saying, I don't know if Rick hadn't been there to help me. I wouldn't have got this if Rick hadn't been there to help me. Well, so what happens, Charlie? We get called to the red truck, right? Everybody knows. So I didn't know what the red truck means. So I go in the red truck. There sits Darrell. Okay, Darrell finishes second to Harry. Darrell Waltrip. Dick Beatty's in there. He's like their competition director at the time. I think Mr. France Jr. was in there. 3 or 4 NASCAR people, and my team owner Richard Jackson would go in there. Well, Darrell's he's battered a wet hen, man, just raising holy hell. You can't do that. You can't push Rick. You pushed him on the last lap, and you can't do that. Darrell, Harry's got to be disqualified, and on and on and on. And they're asking me, and all I'm doing is saying, watch the TV cameras, guys. Just watch the TV cameras. That's all I can tell you. Watch the TV cameras, because I kind of figured out at the time that I don't think that they really got good shots of what we were doing, even though the cameras had to be honest. But anyhow, that's another whole long story about camera placement and drivers knowing where the cameras are and all in those days. All right. But anyhow, so we're sitting there, and Harry and Darrell, I mean, again, but Darrell's just trying to get it going, trying to get Harry disqualified. I'm not admitting to anything. About that time, there's a knock on the door, and they open. It's Jeff Hammond. Right. Jeff is Darrell's crew chief.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jeff says, Darrell, I need to see you out here. Darrell says, what? He says, we got a problem. I need to see you. He said, I'm busy right now. He says, yeah, I know, Darrell, but we've got a problem. I need to talk to you out here. Talk to me in here if you want to talk to me. Our car is in inspection, and our spoiler's too low. All right. So we have minimum degree on the rear spoilers. That's a rule. And what would happen during the race, the guys that weren't cheating, that had little hydraulic devices and all that would lower the angle of the spoiler. If you lower the spoiler at Talladega or Daytona, you're going to go faster, dude. But I mean, it's like 100 horsepower, lower that spoiler 2 or 3 degrees. So what would happen, the guys would come in the pit, and they would, like the gas catch can man or whoever, or either the guy running around with the tire, they would come around and just kind of whack that spoiler, right? Just whack it. And you didn't have 1,000 cameras zoomed in on every pit stop in those days, and you only had so many officials to watch this stuff. So during the race, at some point, one of the pit crew of Darrell's dudes, one of his guys, hit the spoiler and knocked it down, right, to make it faster. Not something that wasn't unheard of. People would do that. You just try to get away with it. Well, anyhow, he said our spoiler's too low. And what do you mean it's too low? Well, it's an inspection, Harold, and the spoiler's low. And I was sitting down here to talk to y'all in the red truck. Darrell sits there for, I'm going to say, a good 7 or 8 seconds. Dead silence. Didn't say a word. Finally, he stands up. He looks at everybody and grins and says, oh, Harry's a hell of a driver, ain't he? I'll see y'all next week. And walks out the door, right? Because what was going to happen, if they disqualified Harry, they were going to have to disqualify Darrell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Darrell knew that. And really, Earnhardt's who should have won this friggin' race. He finished third, right? He's the one who should have won the race. But the a funny part of that deal, it was so many funny parts of that. I mean, like the next week we go where we're at, and Harry stops me. He said, Rick, did you have to lie as much as I did all week about you pushing me? I said, no, I didn't lie anymore. I said, when I was down there lying to those reporters, you were up there on national television saying I couldn't have made it without old Rick Mast had to help me. Yeah, but I didn't know it was illegal. I didn't know you couldn't do that. I'm like, well, whatever, you know. And a follow up to that story, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, I did a clip on Twitter or X now, and it's from the movie Cars. And Darrell's doing the narration on Cars, right? And they're at a race somewhere, and somebody runs out of fuel. I forget the names of these car deals. You can look it
Mm-hmm.
up and find it. But he's pushing the guy on the last lap, helping him. And Darrell's narrating. He says he's not really pushing him; he's just bumping him, and bumping's all right. There's nothing wrong with bumping the guy, right? So I put a thing out there. Well, see here, Darrell's been raising hell for 20 years about that, or 30 years, and here he is now he's hypocritical because he's saying it's okay on the Cars movie to do that. And Darrell had some kind of smart aleck remark to it too, right? In fact, I tell you another part of that story. I relayed that story on the Dale Jr. download 2 or 3 years ago when I was on it, and it was so funny. I called Darrell that night, and I was telling him about that story. And here's the neat part, man. As we got to talking about it, Darrell went back to the moment, Charlie. He went back to that moment, and I'm telling you, he got all pissed off again, right there on the friggin' telephone with me, talking about that. He was all it was the weirdest thing, man. It was like he's back in the moment, and I'm like, you know what? Race car drivers, they're just a different breed because we didn't have a as it turned out, we didn't have a logical conversation because he got back in the moment and got all pissed off again because he thought he had a victory robbed from him. Right? I thought to me that whole story, that part right there was the coolest part of that whole story, and that was just like what 2, 3 years ago, right? So, they talk about race car drivers having elephant memory, and that is true on stuff. We can't remember what we ate for breakfast, but we can remember lap 178 at New Hampshire when that friggin' Earnhardt hit me in turn 3. It cost me a lap. Right? It's just the way it works with drivers.